Hello again, and welcome to the WSBI-ESBG Exchange podcast for Thursday, 7 February 2019. I'm James Piper, Senior Advisor for Communications at WSBI and ESBG, the two associations with a mission to help savings and retail banks thrive. This is episode 6, the first of many podcasts scheduled for 2019. Like every podcast, we try to highlight news and insight from the world of savings and retail banks in some 80 countries around the world. This episode focuses on Europe and savings and retail banking there. They are driven to help Europeans prosper. Just how is outlined in a new memorandum released last week by ESBG. Joining us now in Studio 4A is Sebastian Stodulka, who heads up our Regulatory Affairs Department at ESBG. We're also going to talk about Fintech, but more specifically, Fintech and women. A Fintech Female Roundtable is coming your way in March. And we'll also talk about WSBI in Latin America and a brochure that highlights what WSBI members in the region are doing. So now let's start with our first story. Joining us now in Studio 4A is Sebastian Stodulka.
Hello.
Who heads up our Regulatory Affairs Department here at ESBG. Sebastian is here to tell us more about this new memorandum released last week. Sebastian, thanks again for coming.
Thanks for having me, James.
So it's called Together for a Growing and More Integrated Europe. That's the name of this new memorandum released last week by ESBG. It's a 14-page document that has a number of sections that spell out the Savings and Retail Banking Association's position on a host of issues. So tell us more.
With pleasure. Thanks, James. What we would like to do with the memorandum is to show our pro-European attitude. We know that the European Parliament elections are right in front of us, and election campaigning has already started. And we would like to give visibility to our pro-European attitude for ourselves, of course, in the first place, but also we would like to support our members. So what we would like to achieve with this memorandum is also that our members use it. They will surely have activities at national level, and if they would like to point out that they are part of a bigger European family, then they are invited to do so and join us with some common messages, one voice for the European savings and retail banking sector, so to speak.
And as we know, there's something like 1,000 of savings and retail banks, roughly, throughout Europe.
Exactly.
So the voice of savings and retail banks is throughout Europe in more than 20 countries, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct, yes.
Great. So tell me a little bit more of what's inside. Maybe break down a little bit the chapters and what's in the memorandum itself.
Of course. At the beginning, we present a little bit ourselves. As alluded before, the European Parliament will have a new composition soon, which leads naturally to the fact that many MEPs, so parliamentarians, wouldn't know us. And the memorandum should also provide a small introduction as to who we are. You already pointed it out. We are savings and retail banks in more than 20 European countries. And we are held together. We believe in the same values. We are regionally focused banks. Our members are pursuing a responsible business, and we have very much of a retail focus. Apart from that, we delve then into some sections where we think we could create some interests and explain a little bit to the outside world our business model and what we stand for and why it would be important to listen to the voice of European savings and retail banks at EU level.
Tell us a little bit more about a couple of the sections that maybe you thought need to be highlighted a little bit, for at least for this podcast, and we'll have subsequent podcasts to go deeper into some of the other chapters as well. So let's just start off with a few chapters that you can help us decipher.
Yes, of course. We have, I think, 6 sections that deserve some more attention, and maybe let's start with 2 today. At the beginning, we try to show that savings and retail banks help improve financing growth and help a sustainable development in Europe. What does that mean? We would like to point out that it's crucially important that the conditions are right for our members to continue serving the real economy. Most clients of our members are households, are small and medium-sized enterprises, and we know that a large majority, for instance, of small and medium-sized enterprises still prefer bank lending over markets lending. And to have a regulatory framework in place that enables our member to continue being champions in SME financing is, in our point of view, crucially important. Our members, as mentioned before, retail banks, are in the regions, have this local focus, and due to this long-standing experience being close to the people, we think that they play a crucial role in financing the real economy. I mentioned before market-based financing. All of what I've said up to now does not mean that we are against market financing. You know probably that there is this project of the Capital Markets Union. We think it's a great complement to bank financing. It shouldn't replace it. It couldn't replace it. But we're also positive about that, but would like to see the right framework for SME lending provided by banks in the first place. I mentioned before also sustainable development. I think sustainable has been a keyword in recent weeks and months. It's all over in Europe, and you hear it everywhere among the decision makers, among the stakeholders out there. And what I would like to underline is that savings and retail banks have had a responsible business model, a sustainable business model, and we're fully aligned with the goal, with what policymakers would like to achieve. Often they use three letters: ESG, environmental, social, and a good governance. So we could not agree more with that. What we would like to do a part of expressing our support to these goals is that so far the social dimension has been maybe a little less in the focus, and the environmental part has been the one that everybody has been jumping on. So one of our main messages probably that you can find in a memorandum is that sustainable is, of course, environmental, but it's more than just environmental. It also has a social dimension, and this is what we would like decision makers to take appropriately into account. This was a brief overview of the first section I wanted to discuss, or to present to you a little more in detail. The second one is on financial stability. That plays a big part as well in our memorandum. What is that about? We start off by mentioning the principle of proportionality, which has been a key subject, a key guiding principle for ESBG and members in recent years. We think that the legislation sometimes does not fully take into account the needs and specificities of certain banking sector segments in Europe. There is legislation, international legislation often, that is designed for internationally active banks. And we don't question that. It's good to have a global set of rules, but sometimes it's also good to see, on the one hand, of course, the size of the bank, but even more the business model. So it's proportionate rules should not just reflect the size of banks, but also the riskiness of the balance sheets, the interconnectedness, the transborder transactions they have, and so on and so forth. And in our understanding, proportionate rule set or proportionate rule sets, I use the plural here, would also bring banks rather on an equal footing, on a level playing field than it has been up to now, when smaller regionally focused banks need to compete with global players but need to fulfill the same rules to the same extent with the same compliance requests that may not put them on an equal footing. So proportionality to us is key, and that is what we're advocating for.
Mm-hmm.
In the financial stability section, we think it fits well in there together with other messages. For instance, that we very much believe in biodiversity in the banking sector. According to our observations, it has been proven an asset that during the crisis that the European banking sector is composed of banks with very different business models, and we would like to continue that. We would not like to have would not like that all banks have the same business model, so we believe that enhances financial stability as well.
So those arguments that you put forth, those are the same ones that you present to parliamentarians in the European Parliament, and you welcome our member banks and associations to, of course, share those types of messaging at regional or national level as well.
Exactly. I can tell you that our members stand behind these messages. Of course, we develop them together with them. It's not something that we created top down. So proportionality, but also what I mentioned before, sustainable development or SME financing is really right to the core of our members' identity. So this has been something we have been promoting at EU level and also international level, and that members have been active on at national level, for sure.
We have good examples of SME financing being provided by members of ESBG in an ESBG brochure that's being updated now.
Yeah.
So that should be out shortly. We're in the final throes of that.
Yeah.
So, but those are already up. The brochure features, again, SME stories from places like Germany, for example, where SME financing is very much a part of what the local savings banks in Germany do. And it's not just in Germany, it's throughout Europe. Next, I just wanted to ask a little bit more about the memorandum and the genesis of it.
As briefly explained before, the main motivation to develop this memorandum now are the European elections. And we would like to separate us a little bit from the crowd. It's no doubt that there will be many initiatives once the European Parliament has taken office over the summer and in autumn, and ESBG will surely underline its visibility again afterwards. But we would also like to be already a little bit active now, which is maybe something that not everybody is doing right now. And together with our members, we would like to use this opportunity, as explained before, to show our pro-European attitude and present ourselves a little bit in the election campaigning at national level with this memorandum.
Thanks, Sebastian. Is there anything else you'd like to say about the memorandum or what's ahead?
First of all, I would like to thank, of course, our members. As I said, it was a common exercise. It is not a top-down exercise what we have developed in there. And in addition to thanking the members, also our communication department has done a great job in designing the memorandum, of course, and has always supported us. And in addition to that, I can only encourage you to read it. As you said, James, it has 14 pages, so it's not super long, but it really gives you a good flavor of who we are. Further sections that maybe deserve future podcasts are on innovation and digitalization, on financial inclusion, financial education, and so on and so forth. So there is more on it, and give you a real feeling what European savings and retail banks look like, what is important to them. So I encourage people to read it, not just future parliamentarians, but also other decision makers or stakeholders who would like to get to know us.
Thank you again, Sebastian. Great first insight into the memorandum that's now available on our website. And we will provide links on this podcast so you can click right through to read all about it. Thanks again.
Thank you, James.
Now, switching gears, we move over to WSBI, and joining us now is Natalie Stanjevich, who leads our innovation and digitization efforts here at WSBI-ESBG. Natalie, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me, James.
So, coming soon, Fintech Female Rountable. Tell us about this. What is this, and when is it coming?
Yeah, it's very exciting. So on the 13th of March, a little bit more than a month from now, we will have a Fintech Female Roundtable that will be shining light on some successful women in finance, in banking, in startups, and also in regulators that are interested and work in financial technology, fintech. And this roundtable will kick off at 4:30 in the afternoon, and we'll have some nice speakers, and then afterwards a roundtable and some networking drinks. And it will be all about collaboration in financial technology. How can we support it? How can we enhance collaboration? What is collaboration about?
And who do you envision coming to this event? I mean, bankers and fintechs, women, anyone else that we should know about, or who you envision coming to this?
Yes, so men and women are more than welcome to join us. So everyone that is interested in fintech and financial technology. So we'll have 3 topics for that day. So basically fintech collaboration, so bank startups, but then also regulators and banks/fintech startups collaboration. And the third one is how do you collaborate at leadership level? So how do we strengthen diversity in finance? So those are the three things. And everyone that is interested is more than welcome to join us.
Great. And tell us a little bit about the membership. Who from our membership will be there on the day?
So one of the speakers is Maja Gostovic. She is from George Labs Eerste Group, and she is the squad leader and product owner responsible for plugin integration. So everything that has to do with API, open banking, and how do banks collaborate with fintech startups. So that's one of the speakers, but we will have several of our members hopefully joining. So I'm looking forward to this.
And I noticed here on the lineup, there's someone from the Bank of Lithuania. So tell us about that. Who is that, and what are they going to speak about?
Yes, so it's Ekaterina Govina. She's advisor to the board of the Bank of Lithuania. Very interesting case because Lithuania is stepping up the fintech game, and they have a lot of new things to say on licensing, on sandboxes, on innovation hubs. So how do regulators collaborate with these fintech stakeholders? A very interesting topic that we will discuss and hear about.
Now, collaboration is really important when you talk about banks and fintechs or between fintechs. So tell us a little bit more about the roundtable discussion around collaboration in the fintech ecosystem.
Yes, so after all these panelists or all the presentations, we will have a roundtable. So it will be up to the participants to sit down with each other. They'll be given a slot where they can discuss to see what are the challenges, what are the opportunities, and how do we overcome the challenges for collaboration. Because everyone loves to talk about partnerships, but how do we really get them done?
Right. And another area of roundtable discussion will be on regulation. So bank and fintech collaboration is great, but what about on the regulatory front? We always say at WSBI and ESBG that we want a framework that helps and doesn't hinder innovation and digitization. So could you talk a little bit more about the topics to be discussed during that regulator session?
Right, definitely. So depending on who will be coming as participants, I hope that we can really trigger a good discussion on how regulators, how ministries, how financial regulators can work together with fintech and bank stakeholders. What are the best approaches? How do we approach licensing? What about the level playing field between all kinds of stakeholders? Who is involved in the sandbox? Do we have a sandbox? Meaning kind of a playing ground where new financial technology solutions can be tried out and developed together with the regulator. So I think the case of Lithuania will be an interesting one, and hopefully more people interested in this policy aspect will come and join us.
And the third roundtable discussion is collaboration at leadership level. So tell us a little bit more about that third discussion group.
Yes, hopefully a very interesting one. Diversity is becoming a more and more important topic, and there are a lot of women at various levels in bank startups and in technology, but oftentimes there are not so many at the highest level, at board level. So that's one of the aspects. If you look at diversity, meaning women in leadership, but of course diversity has a lot of different aspects. So what we would like to discuss with the participants is what is hindering more diversity at leadership level, how can we strengthen it, what do we have to put in place to have a diverse leadership and a diverse board level. And for instance, two of the interesting speakers that we will have, one Nina Hulskens, who is managing director of Cosmo Element, a consultancy. She, is managing director herself of her own boutique consultancy. What is her experience? And also Patricia Boydens from Harmony, who's the CCO.
What does that mean, CCO?
Chief Commercial Officer.
Okay.
So hopefully she will be also, or both of them will be able to share with us their experiences and how we can make the board level more diverse.
And we have a little bit of that within our membership. I think the head of Swedbank is a woman, for example,
Exactly.
and the head of the Swedish Association, both Swedish members, also headed by a woman. So it starts there, I guess. It's starting in Sweden, for example, but it'll be interesting to see other examples of that during the collaboration at leadership level discussion. Right, so it's coming up very soon, so 13th of March, so we're about, 5 weeks out. Great, well, is there anything else you'd like to add as to this upcoming Fintech Female Roundtable?
Thank you so much to all the support that we have had so far, because we are collaborating with some partners on this. So Fintech Ladies, Cosmo Element, Fintech Belgium, and Beehive are all joining in for this event.
So you got 4 different organizations coming together along with WSBI-ESBG.
Exactly. So looking forward to bringing out this message of enhancing collaboration in financial technology and more women visibility in fintech.
Great. Well, it's coming up 13 March here in Brussels in the afternoon at 4:30. Don't miss it. Fintech Female Roundtable. Thank you, Natalie, for joining us, and we look forward to the roundtable, and we look forward to seeing you, our members, and the whole fintech and banking community together on that day. So thanks again for joining us, and we'll hear from you soon.
Thank you, and looking forward.
Learn more about the Fintech Female Roundtable on the WSBI-ESBG website, or go into the Innovation and Digitization Hub, which is located on the WSBI-ESBG website. So have a look, and we'll see you then. Okay, so joining us now is Amy Suarez, who is in charge of our Latin America and Caribbean regional group. Amy, thanks for coming.
Thank you, James, for inviting me.
Wanted to dig in a little bit deeper into what we're doing in Latin America and the Caribbean. We've done it for Asia. We talk a lot about Africa, and now it's time for Latin America and the Caribbean region to have its time on the podcast. So tell us a little bit about the membership in the region, maybe the number of members and which countries, and then their importance in the region. That would be really, really helpful.
Okay, indeed. The WSBI is present in 12 countries with 13 members in the region. And most recently, the institutions that have joined us are Banco Nación from Argentina and GN Bank from Jamaica.
So there's a lot of different banks. So it's English speaking, Spanish speaking.
Yes,
They
indeed.
can come from South America. They can come from, the Caribbean islands. I think you're from the Dominican Republic.
Exactly,
So
yes.
do you know how many clients our members serve there, roughly?
Roughly, they serve over 100 million clients there.
And what kind of people do they normally serve?
Normally, they have services from A to Z, as we call it, but they have a strong focus in serving the underbanked. So there's a strong financial inclusion mission, let's say, in the DNA of the institutions that are part of WSBI in the region.
So financial inclusion is, the heart of WSBI's mission, and we wanted to talk a little bit more about how they do that. And this is always interesting. We know financial inclusion is important because it opens up many opportunities for people on the ground. and we wanted to talk how they got there. So, what role does innovation and digitization play in that? We see it in other regions, but what about Latin America and the Caribbean?
It plays a huge role, and even more so nowadays that it's all, let's say, ran by technology and digitization, let's say, in all areas of our life in a way. But particularly in financial services, it helps banks reach out really to people that couldn't be reached if they didn't have technology to help this. You have many countries that have geographic barriers. For example, you have Peru with the Andes Mountains. They're cutting the country in half, if you like, so to speak. Then you have Chile that have like lots of scattered islands at the end of the continent. They also need financial access and ways to reach financial services. So then it's fundamental to continue their financial inclusion mission, indeed.
Excellent. So how do we at WSBI help those member banks get there? What types of efforts do we do, and how is WSBI structured so that it can help them achieve that?
Well, WSBI is organized in regional groups. I guess like this has been talked about also already in the podcast relating to Asia, Pacific, and Africa. In the case of Latin America, it's the same, and WSBI gathers this regional group to set the priorities in the region and what we're going to be doing in a triennial focus.
So a 3-year
Yes.
plan, I guess you would
With
say.
a 3-year plan, exactly.
Okay. So you got 13 members in 12 countries.
Indeed.
Convening. And you alternate, like, different countries, different years, and that sort of
So
thing?
yes, we have different hosts every year, and like sometimes more than once a year. And then there's our annual event that we do.
That's the regional group meeting.
Indeed. That is like the annual assembly, as we call it, of the Latin American and Caribbean members of the WSBI.
So it's coming up later this year, correct?
It's coming up later this year in the fall. But before that, we will have, for example, innovation workshop together with a GRULAC steering committee, that is the body that, like I said, sets the priorities for the region of what we're going to be working on.
The innovation workshop. Tell us a little bit more about what's in store.
The central focus of the event will be customer engagement, data, and partnerships, and how to get the most out of the new technologies.
What sort of discussions will be taking place at that innovation workshop?
Discussions will include themes around how to create customer engagement and centricity, which services to build for customers, mobile interfaces, collaboration between banks or between banks and startups. And the day will end with a deep dive session on digital onboarding and authentication.
What else do you have in store for 2019?
In the fall, we will have our annual meeting in Dominican Republic together with the IDB's event on inclusive finance, the Foromic. This event is organized by IDB Lab, and we are doing the event back to back with ours, following collaborations and discussions that we've had with the IDB group since last year.
Well, it sounds like you got a lot on your plate for 2019, and we're really, really looking forward to the progress that the members are making in Latin America and the Caribbean. Listeners, if you'd like to learn more about the region, you could certainly go to the WSBI website or click below to see the brochure, Banking Serving Thriving, which highlights what is going on in the region. And Amy, thank you so much for joining us. That's it for this podcast for Thursday, 7 February. Special thanks to our guests, and special thanks to our technical ace, Alexander Deschamont. I'm James Piper, signing off until next time. Thanks for listening. For more information about WSBI and ESBG, go to our website. Visit us on YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn. The podcasts are available on both SoundCloud and YouTube.